Hi, everyone. I'm Jason.
I'm Mateen.
And welcome to the Elevated Convo podcast. Mateen and I are social event organizers in the Los Angeles area. We're lucky to have had thousands of attendees at our events over the past few years. And our events are centered around these sort of spiritual dialogues, elevated conversations that we find a lot of people want to have. And they feel like they don't have a space to have these conversations. So at these events, we've talked to dozens of people individually, one-on-one over the past few years, and they all seem to have similar questions, which is why we started this podcast. We want to have these discussions and open it up to a wider community where we can all discuss topics that we're interested in together and through a spiritual lens. So we answer listener questions on the show, and today we have a question from my friend Sophia. She's asking about gossip and backbiting. She notices it a lot in her friend groups in New York. And today we're going to talk about how to notice when people are backbiting, strategies for avoiding it sort of on an individual level, like specific things we can do, and also strategies for sort of steering a group away from gossiping if you notice that that's happening. We're going to talk about all that right now. Mateen, why don't you start by reading the question?
Today's letter comes from Sophia. This is what she says. Hi guys, I recently moved to New York and I've been trying to make new friends. And I noticed that a lot of groups of people seem to bond over judging others and talking about them behind their back. Sometimes it's just about famous people or people online. But it also sometimes is directed at people we know. When we're all hanging out and one person leaves, immediately everyone else starts talking about them, which makes me wonder, what are they talking about when I'm not there? Yeah. As I've stayed in this group longer, I've noticed that the gossiping causes issues, and yet everyone just says it's harmless chatter. Any suggestions on how I should handle this?
Yeah, I mean, this is a tough one. I feel like Sophia is certainly not alone in feeling this way. I don't know what your experience is, but it seems like backbiting is so common. Backbiting, gossip, whatever you want to call it. It's like universal. I feel like nearly universal in our society, especially Western society. Like there are not only whole TV shows, but whole TV channels dedicated to like judging others. Think about all these reality TV shows, Yeah. So like, I absolutely understand where Sophia's coming from. It is a huge pervasive issue. I certainly have ideas. I mean, it's not an easy thing. But yeah, I mean, what do you think?
I mean, it just came out that Peacock just gave its ratings out that Love Island USA was the #1 rated show on their entire network.
Wow.
And I don't know, that kind of tells me a story of people like sitting in with their group of friends, wherever they are, at a bar, at their home, and just
judging others.
Yeah. and even though their lives, in many ways, the reason why these shows are so popular is because in many ways they're relatable to who we are as a society.
Yeah.
But it's comfortable when we take ourselves out of it. That's why I also think, and I want to go into real quick, social media is such a popular place to backbite, to gossip, because you're not actually there. Nobody sees you. Nobody can directly in person tell you that was wrong.
Yeah.
There's just this constant opinionated conversation with no boundaries.
No, it makes sense. I mean, that I think is probably the first thing I would say about backbiting as far as advice, because there's two sides to the advice. There's advice around like, how can I gossip less? And there's advice around like, if I'm in a group and I find people are gossiping, like, what can I do? The most important piece of advice that's helped me is kind of what you were saying, where like people are comfortable saying bad stuff about others behind their back because they're not there. One like thing that totally changed everything for me when I started following this is like, when you're talking about someone else behind their back, act as if the person is there, right? Like be fair to them, like it's not practical to never say literally anything about anyone else behind their back, but like it's a very narrow set of circumstances where it's justified, right? You have to be really careful about that. Like, for example, like at work, I'm asked to like give critical feedback about my coworkers, right? And if I was to say everything is 100% fine, you know, it would be a bit disingenuous, you know? So
Right.
like you are called to be honest, but you can do so in a fair way. You can do so like you don't want to sort of let yourself or your sort of passions bubble up and like, you know, like when I'm thinking about, I don't know, things my coworkers can improve on, sometimes I'm like, oh, that person did something really, but like I have to sort of quell that part of me, you know, like act as if they're there with me and say, yeah, you know, like one time they did, you know, they were kind of unresponsive during a project. They didn't give me as much support as they could, but eventually blah, blah, blah. Or maybe there is no but. Maybe, you know, you just sort of do it in a fair way. That really helped me. Like thinking that someone else is in the room while you're saying something about them, and also just being very selective about which situations you do choose to talk critically about others, because there are some situations where it's justified, but it's very few. And we have to be careful about that, I think.
I think we're also in a society that we like to overshare. Also, what is given to us in confidence and what isn't, I think it is what we need to figure out here. And almost like exactly how you said it, as if the person is standing right there. Now, I've also heard a similar thing of like, I had a friend that like messaged me in a similar story and said, well, we as a group probably would have said the same things if that person was sitting there as well.
Right.
So like, how, you know, on top of that, that's an interesting take on things, because then you're like, well, that person is there, you're still going to talk bad about them.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
But that just shows that it's the understanding of our society of oversharing and just being comfortable by making other people uncomfortable.
Yeah, I also think that as a society, we're very comfortable with judging others. So like along this line of like tips for ourselves, like how to backbite or gossip less just for ourselves. Another thing that really helps me, we've talked about it before, is this idea of like, you have no idea what someone's going through. You know, it's like the classic example I give to people is if you're like driving down the highway and someone comes and cuts you off, you know, like you could think, oh my gosh, that person like is horrible. They have no respect for others. They didn't even see me. They don't even care. They're just, you know, like breezing right by me.
Right.
You know, what a fill in the blank. But you have no idea what that person's going through. Maybe they're like on the way to the hospital. You know, maybe they have their like pregnant wife in the passenger seat, and I don't know. I mean, you have no idea. You know, I mean, or it could be less extreme than that. Maybe they just had like a really, really bad day, or they're really stressed out about something, and they honestly just didn't even see you. You know, it's easy for us to judge others, and I think with that comes what you're talking about, which is why people are so comfortable, even if someone's in the room, you know, talking smack on them or saying whatever. But we really don't know what people are going through. And I can't count the number of times where I thought something about someone. I'm like, oh, like, I can't believe they did that, you know, like judging them. And then I find out more information. I'm like, oh my gosh, I had no idea they were actually going through this when that happened. And I feel so bad for judging them. And like, you know, that's happened to me a handful of times, but I'm sure like if that's happened to me, I don't know, 5-10 times, there's probably like 25 or 40 or 100 like other times where I was judging someone and I didn't find out the whole truth. So I feel like assuming the best of people it's not an easy thing to do, but it does help, at least with me, as far as like not judging people and not backbiting.
I think there's also more to it than all of this, because breaking down even more, what makes us want to backbite? Because there has to be this, we said comfortable, but like this ease that it gives us. Because for me, at least, because I'm not a perfect human being, nor is any person here on this planet, we all backbite, we all gossip, even if we don't, there's different levels of it.
Yeah.
Maybe one can really hurt somebody and one can sort of gets blown in the wind. But this idea of that, does it make us feel good, or really does it not make us feel that great? Because when I backbite, it affects me later. It makes me feel like weaker inside. It boosts my ego, right? My ego feels great. I feel like I'm part of the group. I feel like I'm popular and all these types of material things. But when I think of the person that I want to be and the person that I promised myself to be. I wake up every morning and I say I want to be the better version that I was than the day before. Does this help that, or does it really, 2 steps forward, 3 steps back type of attitude?
Totally.
What do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you brought up this idea of ego in the self, right? A lot of religions, a lot of spiritual traditions, have this concept of ego or self. And honestly, like me and Mateen are all about trying to find sort of common threads through different religious traditions. Like, I would say a lot of religions could be summed up, at least partially. Their dogma, their traditions all center around sort of like quelling or quenching the self within us, those sort of like lower nature desires, greed, jealousy, lust, all those things, and instead nurturing the divine qualities within us. Right. So it's a lot of religions, whether it's Buddhism, Hinduism, Islam, you certainly see it, Christianity as well. A lot of verses, a lot of scripture talks about this idea of putting aside, our sort of selfish desires, our internal desires, and instead prioritizing the desires of the divine, the creator, God. By the way, in the Baha'i faith, backbiting is strongly discouraged. There's a quote that says, it quencheth the light of the heart and extinguisheth the life of the soul. Think about that. Like, that is a really intense quote. For those that don't know, me and Mateen are both Baha'is, and we often use the Baha'i faith to inform our perspective. When I read that, like, it's so intense. And it's so easy to sort of think that something is acceptable because people in contemporary society do it. There's all these things, right? Like, think about cigarettes. Cigarettes were so widely accepted, people didn't think twice about it, and everyone was sort of like, yeah, this is probably fine. And, then it took 15, 20, 30 years. And then we realized, oh, this is actually like terrible for you.
Right.
So I think that's certainly true of backbiting, right? Because I think it's an inherently selfish thing. I think the reason people do it at its core is because it makes us feel better about ourselves. If we're judging others, what's implicit in that? We're better than them. It's true of watching reality shows. It's true of whatever. Like, you see people in an extremely vulnerable state, and the reality TV shows, for instance, it's often manufactured by a producer, but still you're like, oh my God, I can't believe that person did that, blah, blah. It's not all that. It's not all judgment. Sometimes you're rooting for someone, but I do think a lot of it, like, the reason it's a lot of, the shows that, have become popular have done so because I think it puts a lot of people in compromising positions. Whether or not they're real doesn't matter, because people, know in the back of their head that it's kind of fake, but they still get that satisfaction from judging people. Right. And it certainly is true just in our day-to-day lives as well. When I come to you and I say, oh my God, can you believe so-and-so did that? What am I implicitly saying? I'm saying we're better than that person. Right. It like fires up our egos.
Right. And it's adding to the divisiveness of our country. And if you're watching this wherever you are around the world, where you put people in categories, in boxes of us and they and them, or us and the others. It sort of creates this, like, again, this mob mentality, but more of that with this popularity group where, like, we know they don't, and if they do, we do. It's sort of this, like, we keep subgrouping ourselves, and you'll tend to see that even. We notice in our society, what is friendship really? What is the backbone of what relationships are? We've been any relationship therapists or guru or individuals will tell us all the time that do not, like, when you're in a relationship with your husband or your girlfriend or your boyfriend or whatever, or wife, do not speak of your personal relationship issues to others, because it does not do any good. It only does harm. Why is that? Is because these things need to be happening on a one-to-one basis. It's not going to be any healthy for me if I go and me and my girlfriend have a problem and go to my best friend and say, let's gossip about these problems.
Yeah.
It doesn't solve any of the solutions. If anything, now I go back to that situation and I feel like I'm a little better about myself.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing for sure. I think that, like, a lot of people, when they come to me with a problem, whether it's in their relationship, in a friendship, at work, whatever, the sort of implicit, like, thing in there is, tell me that I'm right. It's like, can you believe that XYZ person did this thing, like, and they're sort of expecting me to, like, sort of, fire up their ego and say, oh my God, I can't believe that. Because you're right. I think a lot of people go, to others for help because they want to be validated, justified.
Validation is very important here.
Yeah. Because, like when there's a disagreement, you feel like your ego's in question. Like, am I right or am I wrong? And you go to get fired up and say, no, I am right. Right. Like that person's terrible. I got to go, whatever. Like that's what people, I think oftentimes are going, they're seeking from their friends. And it's funny, like you'll notice if you start to withhold that, like I'll listen to my friends when they say these things, but I'm just like, oh yeah, that's tough. Or I try to be as non-judgmental as I can. And you can tell they're sort of like,
they're like, yeah, but like, aren't I right? Like,
yeah. Like basically, yes. And eventually, kind of to Sophia's question, like one thing you'll notice if you start, to like gossip less, talk about others behind their back less, is that people won't go to you for that. And it's kind of a relief. Like for me, like when I really started making this a priority and I changed my perspective on this, like it was such a relief to not carry the burden of judging others and to sort of hold all these grudges. I don't think we realize how much mental energy that takes up. That's a whole other topic in and of itself. But, once you sort of begin to show your friends that, hey, I'm not really interested in having this dialogue, it like frees you of the burden, in my opinion. Right. It's an amazing thing.
I mean, I would add this to Sophia as well, that if you do take the stance of not engaging in backbiting and not engaging in gossip, these words are interchangeable.
Yeah.
Then not only are you sure they're not going to turn to you for these sort of like gossiping tactics, but your friendship groups are going to change, and you're going to have to understand that, because then you're not the person they can come to boost their ego.
Yeah,
they're going to turn to somebody else. But that's kind of not to say that these are toxic friends. All our friends have these elements, even ourselves. But it's sort of to limit that level of like, am I going to get an ego high every time I'm with my friends because we talk about somebody else? Maybe there's other elements you can add to it. Maybe you can be that person in that friend group that adds that extra level of deepening to that friend group.
Yeah.
Maybe instead of talking about somebody else, you say, hey, let's just go on a walk together and just find something else to talk about. Maybe you guys can find, maybe it doesn't have to, maybe you can slowly, I would say this, slowly get yourselves out of talking about backbiting by talking about something outside of the friend group. Slowly transition yourself out of it. It's gonna be very hard. It's like telling an alcoholic they need to stop drinking alcohol.
Some
it's
people are addicted.
Extremely difficult to just say, I'm just gonna quit right now. But I would say transition yourself out of it. Be that friend. Stand up for other friends. Stand up for yourself, but just in general, just like how that when you leave the group, someone will talk about you to other friends.
Yeah. I mean, I think maybe this is a good point to transition and talk about. So we've covered strategies for sort of helping yourself with backbiting. The idea of acting as if someone else is in the room when you're talking about them, being fair to them. Also, this idea of non-judgment. We don't know what people's situations are. And maybe we can now transition into like strategies for what to do when you're in a group that wants to, gossip about others, right? And I think you mentioned a good one, which is like pivot, the conversation. One thing I try to do, and it kind of throws people off, is like, all like bunch of people will be saying, I can't believe this person, like they did this weird thing to me. That person's like, yeah, like, and he did this thing. And I'm like, oh, well, like that person's always quite nice to me. And like, I really like the way
he does do that now that I noticed.
I'm like, I like the way this person does X, Y, Z. And it's like a very subtle way for me. That's funny. You notice it's a very subtle way for me to just like, signal to people. 'Cause there are some people that I think don't want to be gossiping. That's another important thing to touch on. Sophia's experience is that it seems like everybody wants to gossip and talk bad. I think some people are doing it because it's an ego boost, certainly. I think a lot of other people are doing it just because they feel like they need to fit in.
To fit in. Yeah.
You know, like that's like we're touching on two core human needs right there, right? The need to feel validated, you know, the self to be emboldened, the ego. And then another one is the need for connection, right? The need to fit in a group. And maybe the reason why gossiping is so pervasive throughout our society now, but also throughout history. Like you go to these religions, you know, like the Bible talks about it, you know, like it's over 2,000, 3,000 years old, you know, these issues we're dealing with.
And we're still dealing with it now.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, it's just natural to human nature because human nature centers around validating the self and feeling included in a group. So my point is that when you sort of signal to the group that you're not interested in the gossip or the, you know, backbiting, whatever you want to call it, I think that some people in that group sort of become aware, like it's a signal to them that like, hey, we don't have to do this if you don't want to. Some people do. Some people are actively trying to steer the conversation in that direction. But I think others as well are like, oh, wow, like Sophia actually doesn't want to talk about this. And I respect that about her. And, you know, it's a sort of signal to me that like, I don't have to do this to fit in. Like that's not what this group necessarily stands for.
I agree. Yeah. Again, you have to be the leader in the group.
In many situations, just because it's so pervasive, right?
Yeah. And it's not just backbiting, but it's there's other topics that we could always talk about. Even like manifesting prayer and all these different things. Like you need to be the leader. You need to provide these solutions to people that people don't know about. Part of it is they're not looking for it. They're comfortable with their life. They like the way things are going, and they don't want someone to come and tell them what to do. Especially since this happens. Especially since majority of us know what we're doing is wrong. We know backbiting, gossiping is not right, and we don't like when someone, like a parent, comes to us, like a lecturer, like a therapist coming to us. You can't do that because it's bad. Well, that group of people may say, well, you're making us feel bad. We're gonna just exit you from the group.
Yeah,
but that's almost like the best gift they could have given you, because it doesn't help you in any way whatsoever. And it only makes you feel not as great, because now you're wondering, what are they saying about me?
Yeah. I mean, I think, to your point, like it's important to be gentle with the way that you go about it, because if you sort of like find aggression or conflict in your group in the form of backbiting, and you sort of like counter that or react to that with more aggression or conflict, basically saying, hey, like guys, like, I mean, it depends on the group, but I think that a lot of, I'm just sort of picturing Sophia's friend group in my head, like what she's probably talking about, if you sort of go to people and are very strongly like, hey, don't do this, especially if it's a group that's prone to backbiting, they probably will be talking about you behind your back. And they're gonna be like, can you believe that she said that to us? But instead, if you just sort of like demonstrate that love attitude first and just say, hey, I really enjoy this person that you guys are talking about. Like they've always been really nice to me. I like this quality about them, whatever it may be. Like when you leave, are they gonna be like, oh, can you believe Sophia? She was so kind and loving to that person.
Loving to that.
Messed up,
wow,
it kind of short circuits the whole thing. I think like there's this downward spiral. A lot of individuals, groups, relationships, everything find themselves in, which is like when aggression or conflict comes up, if you meet it with more aggression or conflict, it just begets more and more and more, and it downward spirals until someone gets kicked out of the group, someone's friends, the feelings get hurt, like you name it. But it's such a short circuit to, take that aggression and meet it with love. It's not an easy thing to do, but like I said, I think that you'll be surprised. I think the reason we're making this show in general, like we've had all these conversations with people who are interested in these sort of higher level discussions. They want to better themselves. It's so easy, I think, to fall into the trap of, oh, everyone's like this. Everyone wants to backbite. I may as well just do it. You mentioned like manifestation, prayer, meditation, all these things where it's like, oh, like, I don't know if people are really interested in these like spiritual concepts, but our experience from talking with like hundreds, thousands of people in LA over the years is that it's more common than you think.
Right.
And the same thing is true of backbiting. I think that when you sort of begin to signal that you're not interested, you might be surprised at the reaction of the group.
Right. And it's like, an analogy here is like, a fire is burning, and like your group, your friend group, they're talking, everybody's talking. Why not just add more fuel to the fire? And make it burn more, because the bigger the monstrosity of the fire is, the better you feel, the more the separation you have from that person that they're talking about. The moment you take the oxygen out of it, and you remove all the gas on the fire, all of a sudden the fire just gets extinguished. And just like that. So it's like this idea of, if I do it, they're gonna ignore me. You're gonna create an earthquake by Jason coming in and saying, well, actually, I think that individual is actually a good person. I really do like hanging out with that person. It suddenly extinguishes the fire.
Yeah.
Because you don't have anything to build on. The building blocks have fallen down.
Yeah.
You have to start back over. And now you're like, oh, are we doing this because it's our job, or are we doing this because we enjoy it? And you realize you don't really enjoy it anymore, because someone in the group is not happy with the situation.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many sort of hidden things that are happening in these conversations, especially with friends. Like, and you'll notice it, especially if you pay attention. Like, you'll all be hanging out and someone brings up, I don't know, someone's name.
Right.
And you can tell there's kind of like this subtext there. And then another person's like, oh yeah, that person.
Yes.
And like there's like a little subtext, and basically everyone's sort of like, are we gonna do this? Are we ready to do this? You know? and like that's how it happens. Like next thing you know, I mean, like you can find, like groups can find themselves getting sort of carried away by this current. Like, and next thing you know, you're saying all these horrible things. Some of it may not even be true. Like it's just like the momentum sort of carries the group. But if you short circuit it, you know, you might be surprised by the results. And I think a few things to clarify here, like, you know, if there is a good quality about that person that you can think of, you know, you should certainly highlight it. Like, I don't think you should necessarily like make stuff up or lie. You know, like you don't want to sort of make something up that's not true, but you know, pretty much everyone has one or two good qualities, you know, that you can find easily if you pay attention. I mean, there's obviously a lot more, but one or two that come to the surface, and you can highlight that. And you know, maybe the group doesn't sort of react the way you want. Maybe they do sort of, they feel uncomfortable by the fact that you're sort of threatening the status quo, that you're not wanting to gossip or backbite. Maybe that means that the group's not for you. You know, it could be as simple as that.
Right. Yeah. That could be it. I mean, we've seen a lot of toxic friendships. When we say toxic, again, it doesn't mean that it's end all be all, that you have to sort of end it where it is. There's some growth that can definitely happen. You're part of the group because you are a unique individual. You're adding something very beautiful attributes to the group, and so if you weren't, then you would have never been part of the group. And so you're a friend in that group because they respect you and they respect your opinions, and just like how you should respect all your other friends. If you say something that sort of stands out, they're going to listen to it. They may not like it. It may take them a few weeks or maybe even a few months to really understand it, but they're going to respect you because they're going to say, next time I have a problem or next time I have a situation, I can go to that friend. I can go to Sophia and she won't just rat it out to everyone she knows. It sort of builds this level of deeper respect between your friend group that will blossom for many, many years.
That's a great point. You know, I think a lot of people nowadays, when it comes to self-improvement, having better character, you know, morals, whatever you want to call it, a lot of people talk the talk. I mean, in general, there's such an abundance of talk, you know, people telling you to do this, do that. And I recognize that, you know, we're part of that. But I think what's really powerful and what people respect is walking the walk. Like if you, like there's nothing more powerful in today's society than seeing someone demonstrate their morals, their values, and realizing that they mean what they say. Because it's one thing to say, you know, hey, like you should do this, you should do that. But to see someone in like a non-judgmental way, just say, hey, these are my values, I'm sticking to them. It's such a powerful thing. And like Mateen says, it builds a level of trust and respect. And I think you'll find that if you practice this non-judgment, then people are way more likely to come to you for advice, for help, because it's so sad to think that there's people out there in friend groups that they can't really go to anyone about their problems because they know the friend group gossips so much that if they are vulnerable to someone and say, hey, I've really been struggling with this, that person's going to turn around and go, can you believe that she told me that this is what's going on? Like how sad, how pathetic, whatever. Like, I don't know what people say, but it's so tragic. And if you can instead be that beacon in your friend group, you differentiate yourself and you show people what you stand for.
Or another way to go around this is just go to your friend group, find the ones that are talking bad, and just slap them. I'm just kidding.
A direct approach.
Yeah, direct violent approach.
Yeah, I don't know about
they'll change it. No, I'm just kidding. Don't do that.
Don't do that.
But it adds this. Of course, what Jason is saying is what we all hope to be. Again, we don't live in a perfect world, but can we?
Yeah, we're certainly not perfect either.
But can we envision a perfect world? And that's, I think, what we all should strive to be. Not every conversation is going to be perfect. Not every conversation is going to be the way we want it to go. Maybe the moment you say, guys, no backbiting, 5 seconds later, it's going to go right back into it.
Yeah.
But you did your part. And you also, what's really important here is that you didn't add to it. By separating yourself out of this, maybe your friends continue talking about it. And maybe you do feel a little bit left out. But it's going to grow. It just like how toxic positivity, not toxic positivity, positivity does grow. Light does become brighter. It doesn't become darkness. When there's a bit of hope in the world, hope is very contagious.
It's true.
And if I see someone else in the group is standing out, being a leader, wanting to make good, if this was me, I would feel like, why wasn't that me? Why didn't I be the first one to stand out? And so I immediately would want to, and maybe that's just who I am as a person. I'm a people pleaser, and I want to make sure people are satisfied and happy. Others are not like this. They've been hurt in this world. Maybe they've been hurt by friends and maybe even family members that spoke about them directly to them and behind their back. So this is sort of a revenge or a vengeance sort of ploy that they're going at. But we need to break that cycle. It needs to be broken somewhere. If it's not broken, then it's going to continue and only get worse.
I agree. And I think that, we all want to better the society. I mean, we want to better ourselves. We want to better our community, our society. And this question, Sophia asked, I really think touches on a larger issue, which is it may seem quite low stakes. It may seem I just want to sort of find better friends. I want to be less uncomfortable when I'm making friends. But really, it is quite profound. I mean, if you set an example to these, people, this friend group of 5, 10, 20 people, maybe some people will respond poorly to it, but others will be perhaps inspired. They'll be like, wow, that really is a interesting thing she's doing. I've never really met a girl that's doing that. That's, sticking up for other people. Right. Everyone's just so quick to gossip and dive into it. And they might be inspired. They might be inspired to do the same thing in other friend groups. And all of a sudden, this seed, this idea that you've planted, of hope, as you called it spreads. And it's really a beautiful thing. So I'm glad that Sophia wrote in and asked this question, because it seems like a simple thing. And a lot of these things, a lot of these topics we want to talk about on the podcast seem simple and even, innocuous or low stakes. But when you zoom out, it really is important to take a stand. And it's so easy to fall into the currents of society, get swept up in them. But taking a stand it's such a rare thing nowadays in terms of gossiping, for sure. I mean, everyone does it. But it's so impactful.
Yeah, just think about how try the opposite. We've seen how there's a quote by Maya Angelou, and I don't know the entirety of it, but the essence of it is people remember how you make them feel. It's not what you say to them, it's not what you do to them, it's how you make them feel. And if you can make them feel they're human, like they're listened to, that they're in the room with you, then that will be an unforgettable experience for them and will come back. And I also believe in a sense of karma in a way, and good karma, you put out good karma, it's going to come back to you. And so if you can just provide that hope, provide that sense of love and that courage to break out from the zone, I bet there'll be good things in store for you.
Yeah. Well, we hope you guys enjoyed. Today we talked about ways to combat gossip, backbiting. We talked about individually, pretending as if someone's in the room with you. We talked about non-judgment of other people because we don't know their backgrounds, experiences. And then we talked about, in a group, can you sort of be that example? Can you short circuit the entire conversation by bringing up good qualities about that person? Can you take that courageous stand and inspire others to do the same? Anyway, we hope this was helpful. We hope you guys enjoyed. Just as a reminder, each week we talk about questions that people write in. So if you have anything you'd like to discuss on the show, please, you'll find a link in the description of the podcast. Please submit your questions, and we'd love to talk about whatever questions, comments, topics you guys want to talk about.
Yeah, let's elevate the conversation. And I know many others probably have similar situations, and let's provide some context and heal the world together.
Great point. I mean, Sophia was courageous enough to write in today. I'm sure that everyone listening to this found some part of this relatable. We all deal with backbiting. We all deal with gossip. So if you have something in your head that you're thinking about, I'm sure that other people's are thinking about and asking that question as well. That's frankly why we started this podcast, because we had so many conversations with people around LA that were so similar. And we felt like there was more people that wanted to have these conversations, which is why we're glad you're here. Anyway, thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.